in hot.
We are here. Oh, 159 people. Whew. We are live.
We're coming in live.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome, everybody, to Cold Calling Isn't Dead. Cold calling is not dead. I am your moderator here to wrangle the kings of cold calling, as I will call them. We have Nick Sproul, our sales development leader from Second Nature, James Say What Buckley, chief evangelist and master of ceremonies from JB Sales, and Tom Slocum here as VP of sales at Trainio. We have a lot in store today. You are going to see me trying to keep them on time because if our prep was any indicator, you're going to be belly laughing through the whole session. So
we're not very funny people. That's not true. We're not very funny.
They're not. They're not very funny at all. They're actually the most boring crowd I've ever been around.
Yeah, it's terrible. You guys are in for a very boring session today.
We've got a few
monotone. We've got scripts to read from. We are ready.
They're going to do everything you shouldn't do in a cold call, and I hope that teaches you how to do better.
Oh, dude, I get the worst ones. I have so many examples.
We got a 40-page deck ready for you. We are so ready.
I'm going to show you 900 deck slides right here, and you just ask any questions that you have. Just shout them out.
Just go. And it's not recorded.
Them at us, please. It'll be fine. We have a few polls that we'd like to get started with. One, we want to ask you, before we get started here, how often do you feel your confidence take a hit when a cold call first kicks off? You're going to see that pop up on your screen. If you could all take a minute and answer that question for us. This is going to give us a little bit of an insight to guide right into our first discussion, where James is going to guide us through.
I will absolutely throw some
magic. Let the group know in the chat too, Lori. The poll is they got to click on the left panel and click polls up in the top right, and they should be able to see that. A couple people are asking.
There we go.
Deal.
Follow what Tom said. He knows what's up.
I wish. I hate my confidence takes a hit. I'm not gonna lie. I'll kick us off, right? It takes a hit for me. You get all hyped up. You got your music going. I know James. He's got ready. He's pumped. First call is like, "F you, James," and you're like, "Oh, all right, cool." Like shit.
Yeah.
Right? You get stunned, and you're just like, what do I do next, right? But the number one thing you should do is...
She doesn't think she'd even survive a cold call. And she doesn't want to see the poll.
That's Elise, right? Yeah, she doesn't, who knows? Surprisingly enough, Elise is a fantastic person on the phone. She does a good job.
Yeah.
Okay, so my belief is that competence comes with confidence, and confidence comes from competence. The more you know about your ICP, your persona, what you sell, why you sell it, and the top reasons why people buy it, the more confident you're going to be in your openers, in your objection handling, and throughout the conversations. Here's the other part of it. Our confidence will almost always take a hit because sales is like especially SDR cold callers is like 90% no and 10% yes. Yep. So we have to plow through all that no and that negative to get to that one positive. I'm not saying you should play the law of averages here. I'm saying if you know your ICP, your persona, and the top 3 reasons why people buy from you like the back of your hand, you can make a very targeted list and come up with openers that will improve your confidence level when you start talking to people. So,
yeah. Hey, James, you just said 3 important things there.
Yeah.
You have to know what you're selling, but you mentioned an ICP.
Yeah. So let's talk about the ICP.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lori, we had a little glitch in the matrix.
You glitched for a second.
Frozen moment there.
You were just like...
I'm just dancing. Learning about ICPs gets me excited. I just dance it out.
So ICP stands for ideal customer profile, and that's usually based on the company. So the company will have this much annual recurring revenue. They'll be funded at least this many times on round whatever funding. They will have at least this many employees. That's company based for ICP. But then if you take that a step further, there's the persona. That persona is the title or the role that you typically sell best to. Sometimes it's not just one. Sometimes there's lots of stakeholders that are part of your conversation. You have to build that bridge in your calling and your email strategies and your outreach strategies between you and the organization. not you and just the people above the power line. That's not effective in any sales cycle in 2022.
Got to get that marketing involved, right? When I was running an org, we went and did that challenge, right? We got marketing to deploy some buyer persona content, and we built out an entire presentation on 6 key buyer personas, right, James? Because at the end of the day, that's what personalization is, right? Let's talk about this personalization coming in. It's just relevancy, right? That's all it is. It's just being intentional with your outreach. I warm call, right? I don't believe in the cold call anymore. I don't think it's necessary, right? There's ways to warm it up, and you're talking about it through that confidence of knowing the right person, the right reach out. You're talking their language. You're speaking at them because you're the expert, right? James, you talk to VP of directors every single day. Where that VP of director internally only speaks with themselves or their team. But you're spending weeks on weeks talking to VPs all over that when I pick up the phone, I know exactly how to talk to you because I'm the expert, right, in that field. I'm the domain expert, and I can come confidently on that first call. And I think the number one thing is to detach from the outcome, especially in that first call. You think you're coming in like you're going to book the first one on the first call, but you have to detach from that, right? Like there is no outcome. Just have a genuine conversation with the buyer persona language, the ICP. You should be calling the ideal people, right? And then you have that conversation and play it out, right? Kind of let the flow go. Be like water. Just flow with the call and find out what happens. You either get the meeting or you don't, but always leave that call better than you left it. You know,
we are back to philosophy right here, Lori. We talked just before the call about the philosophical boundaries inside of sales. Like water. That's perfect.
It's like water, right?
I'm curious for the audience. Put a 1 in the chat if you're fine with a cold call. Put a 2 in the chat if you prefer warmer calls. Just curious.
And I'd like to kick it off to Nick. Nick's here, right? Nick, what do you got? What do you think for your team? How do you set them up in the first of the day? They're all remote. You're not right there. The floor's not buzzing, and they're picking up that call. How do you overcome that with the team, or what do they typically, do with that first call?
Yeah, for any cold call, it's when you get someone on the phone, which can be rare these days. Kind of the idea of show me you know me, and you're not going to get the sale on every single person you talk to. So it's all about building that rapport, making sure that you're matching their tone and tempo, that you can kind of sense their personality, because that's going to determine the types of questions and the way the conversation is going to go. You don't want to come at someone who might be more dominant with kind of that influencer, bubbly personality. You got to get to the point pretty quickly. So matching that tone and tempo and building that rapport, I think, is kind of the most important.
Okay, talking tone here. How do you identify that? How do you, when I make that phone call, how do I know if I'm dealing with someone who's a bit more dominant versus someone who doesn't need me coming at them like that?
So I love the tone conversation. Nick, do you want to go first?
Yeah, it's like I used to work in the shipping industry, so you deal with a lot of dominant personalities. So they're going to be like, oh, what do you got for me? So you got to get to the point really quick. You got to get your point across versus someone who's bubbly. You're going to be able to sense that and be like, oh, hey, how's your day going? You can kind of keep that conversation light before you kind of get into the business side of things.
So when I think about tone, I go back to Chet Holmes, the ultimate sales machine. Let me know in the chat if you've ever heard of Chet Holmes. Rest in peace, Chet Holmes. Great sales influencer, right? This guy was way before his time, and he gave this great talk in the ultimate sales machine about our tonality in sales. So I'm going to give you guys a skill that you need to master to get better at cold call openers. So one of the hardest things that we do is get through the gatekeepers, right? The gatekeepers are tough because we answer and we have this terrible tendency to be like, hi, can I speak with John, please? And there's this upward inflection in our tone. We do not come off confident in this moment. We come off very begging. Maybe this is useful. I don't know, really. There's like doubt in that tone, that upward. Now watch how you feel when I ask for John this way. Hi, I'd like to speak with John, please. That downward tone, that downward inflection makes you feel different as the listener. And they're more authoritative on the other side of the call. This is the difference between, sorry, they're not available, I'll put you through to his voicemail, please hold. And I'm sorry, who's this?
Yeah. You have to act the part, right? Your tonality has to show, something I learned in my career was, It's your first day on the job. You're an SDR, and you think the whole world knows that, right? So you lack confidence, and you're not prepared. The reality is nobody knows that but you. Let's be real. These clients don't know. These prospects don't know. And I hate to say, like, fake it till you make it, because that's the worst advice ever. But it is, in a sense, is act the part, right? That dominant tonality of, yo, can I talk to James? He's expecting my call.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on.
He's expecting my call is gold.
Right. It's just like, hey, hey, is James there? It's not the, hi, I was looking for a James Buckley. Is he there? And they're like, yeah, I'll get you to their voicemail, right? They don't know. You have to act like you do this on the day-to-day, believe in that belief. And it all starts, like you said, knowing the ICP and being educated as an SDR from the get-go to at least feel empowered, because the fear comes from the unknown. You don't know which way the call is going to go. Me and you and Nick, we've been cold calling for a long time. There's not a scenario we don't run into anymore, very rarely. But when you're first cold calling, like, everything is new. You don't know the twists and turns. And if you're not prepared for those, you're coming in with that soft, passive language of they're in control of the call and you're the inconvenience.
The tone transfers when you're trying to get action too. So when they say, I'm sorry he's not available, I'll put you through to his voicemail, that tone works when you say this. Actually, I'd really prefer you write this down.
Oh, shit.
And the reason is because, first of all, I want to know your name. What's your name? Right? You're a human being, not some obstacle for me to overcome, not some barricade for me to get through. You're a human being. What's your name? I'd really prefer if you wrote this down. The reason is because I get transferred to a lot of voicemails. I usually end up chasing. So Charlotte, is that your name? Thank you, Charlotte. Would you write this down for me and deliver it to John? Yeah. Right? I don't care how many times Charlotte has to do this, and I'm going to call back tomorrow, and I'm going to say, is this Charlotte? And they're going to go, no, this is Tony. And I'll say, hey, Tony, I called yesterday, and I spoke with Charlotte. Right? Do you also work for John?
Yeah. You have to believe in their ecosystem, right? You have to, a lot of people are dropping in the comments here is that, SDRs have to believe they're equal to the people they're calling. And we get shit on. The SDR role gets shit on so much. We're order takers. We're appointment setters. We're the worst inconvenience in the world. But the reality is it's a matter of just changing that tonality and that confidence of we are the same level, right? I'm just trying to help you here. There's no friction here. There's no tug of war. I'm just trying to reach James, right? And I think gatekeepers are the best people to talk to, right?
They have the most access. They have the most access.
They have the access. They have everything. When I was at Yelp in my Yelp days, only way I got to get to people was through gatekeepers. That's all I got to talk to. So I had to call the bartender every night and be like, yeah, Tom, it's me. And I'm like, where's James? Like, what's up? And you can become friends with them, right? Because
I got to a point where they answer and they're like, James, how are you?
Right. They're like, you see the number and they're like, Tom, what are you doing, dude? And I'm like, hey, on the dot, it's 5:05. You told me to call, right? But you sell with them, right? You have a natural conversation. You use the gatekeepers to work with you. What I tend to do is if they do give me any information, I send them a gift card or I send them a thank you note right after the call, right? And I'm like, James, it was great chatting with you today. And honestly, thank you for, giving me a leg up and trying to get a hold of David. That really was helpful. Here's a $5 coffee card for you for the next time, right? I couldn't thank you enough for taking that time, right? And then boom, you give them a gift and then they feel that relationship with you and acknowledgement that how many SDRs just get that extra cell phone number and then hang up and never talk to that gatekeeper again and write them off, right? You get it and you're done. Be friends with those people because guess what? You're going to lose that deal down the road and you're going to have to call Lori back and Lori's going to be like, oh, I remember you. You got the phone number and blew me off, right?
Lori, Tom, while you're talking about this, a question kind of lines up with everything we're going through. How do you be confident calling on a person who's hung up on you multiple times but continues to open your emails, even click on your links? So we're talking to the gatekeepers and the like. When they keep not responding to you, how do we keep our confidence? How do we play in with tonality to keep driving this forward?
One thing that I like to do is I feel that people like to help people out. So sometimes I'll get to the gatekeeper and say, hey, I'm hoping you can help me. I'm a little lost. I've been trying to reach John for a couple of days now. We had a call scheduled or something kind of along those lines. But it keeps going straight to voicemail. Is there a better way to kind of engage with John? And they might say, oh, email's better. I want to try LinkedIn or something like that.
Yeah, my colleague Morgan J. Ingram will often call this the lost at Disney World effect.
Ooh.
Right? He was lost at Disney World. You walk from person to person. Can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? You'll find that person that's willing to help you oh shit, there's a young kid here. Let's help him out, right? I don't know. Are we allowed to say that word on this show? I don't want to.
I think
I don't want to hear
I think the editorial team were
Yeah.
like, they bleep it out.
Mild cursing approved. Yeah.
FCC fines coming, James. Way to go,
I
man.
guess I should have asked before.
It's fine.
Yeah, David, I'll meet you there, buddy. We'll ask people to help us.
How about when we have all this, we're coming in, we're asking for help now. We know how to use our tone. We're feeling confident here. How do we handle when someone throws you a curveball?
When you say curveball, are you talking about an objection?
Probably.
Sure, it could be an objection. It could just be something you didn't expect. Sometimes I've called and I've been informed someone has passed. And that's that one's always a real scary.
Dead people. I can't even tell you how many dead people I've called.
It's terrifying.
They
Feel so bad.
They don't answer.
They don't answer. That's a guarantee.
How do we handle, like, people think they know who we are? We're coming in,
right.
and Nick, how do I handle a pattern disruptor?
I mean, one thing I like to do is just, I think James kind of mentioned this when we were doing kind of our prep for this, is say, oh yeah, I know you're busy. I know you probably are heading into a meeting, so they can't give you that kind of objection. One thing I like to do is kind of get that chuckle. So if I'm calling someone like myself, like another SDR manager, I might say, hey, this is Nick from Second Nature. This call is going to be colder than your SDR's feet on their first day of calling prospects. So yeah, you're kind of getting that rapport, you're getting something that's kind of personal to them that they kind of experience on a day-to-day basis. And you also want to try and tie it to a pain that they're experiencing, but also a pain that you help kind of alleviate with your product.
There's a lot of good ones there that come to mind. I drive more urgency than X-Lax.
The one we did, remember? Oh, the pregame show.
So my contention on this front is that people need to understand the difference between a soft no and a hard no. A soft no is definitely a brush off, right? You hear these a lot when you're cold calling. Hey, we're not interested. Take me off your list. Unsubscribe. Remove me. We're all set. These are soft no's. They don't even really know what they're saying no to. You could call these people back in 4 days and they won't even remember who you are. No, especially a soft no, and never talk to me don't mean the same thing. You need to literally tell me, I don't ever want to hear from you again, before you never hear from me again. And then if you're lucky, I might not call you in 6 months hoping you don't remember me.
Oh, do you break up emails? Do you actually break up with anybody, James?
I don't do the breakup email because most of the time people are breaking up with individuals that they've never really had a relationship with. They don't make sense. If you've ignored me for 36 calls, I'm not going to send you a breakup email. Hey, I'm never calling you again. You don't care about that.
We also don't want to teach them that it's okay to ignore us by allowing them the breakup email. When we all know we're either going to pass it off to a teammate or we're going to be calling them again. Like our word is, it has to be impeccable in sales. People.
Why do you some hard no's that make sense to me? Like, we don't have budget for that. Hey, no sweat. I'm not going to waste my time on someone that isn't going to be able to afford my solution, my service, right? The person that manages that no longer works here. Oh,
great.
Okay. Great. Right. You can bet you're not winning that battle, right? Because the person that manages that is gone now. You got to wait for that person to be replaced. You got to look for that announcement on LinkedIn.
Have those triggers automated, baby.
Yeah, and then you cold call that person and say, "Hey, congratulations on the new role. I didn't want to send you another random LinkedIn message saying that, so I thought I'd pick up the phone and actually call you to congratulate you."
I love that. Yeah.
Perfect.
As far as pattern disrupts go, right, when you get those curveballs, I think it just goes back to the initial statement James said. I don't remember what it was, but what did you say about confidence?
I'll call you tomorrow. Yeah. Dude, anytime somebody throws a soft objection at you, you can respond with, "No sweat. Thanks for the time. I'll call you tomorrow." Yep.
That's literally the best way to own it.
People will stop you from hanging up the phone and say, "Wait, who is this?"
Yeah.
And now
you're like, "Wait, you're not calling me again." Yeah, they're like, "Hey, let's just hash this out now because you ain't calling me again tomorrow. What do you want?"
Right.
And it's like,
that's right.
Right. We have a lot of questions about openers. Ooh. Can you all tell us what your favorite things are? Is it, "Hey, I'm Lori. I'm from X company. This is what we do"? Is it a joke? Is it a fall on the sword? How do
Nick's
I
got a good one.
people?
Nick, roll it out. Roll out your inspiration you love.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned kind of the one about SDRs calling, but our friend Ronan does the one like, hey, this is Nick. This is a cold call. What do you say when we roll the dice? So that's one. Kind of goes back to getting that chuckle, building that rapport. That's one that I use, and I think that my team uses as well. But it's good to have a depository or kind of a library of openers, so you're not using the same one every single time.
That's what I would say. I don't think there is. I think when you go back to mirroring the person, right, being able to be super confident and aware of how they answer the phone, that first, just as much as they're taking that first 15 seconds to make a judgment call, so are you, right? Listening to how they're answering it, what that tonality is like, hello, and they're in a rush. Okay, don't go into it hard, right? So I think the best exercise is to write up a couple different openers that put in your personality. If you're humorous, bring the humor, right? I can't do it. I eat shit. I've tried. Sorry, hopefully they bleep that out. I tried, right? My FCC fines are through the roof. I can't. So, I can't do the humor. I try and it just falls flat, right? But I have some people that I know do it very, very well. So you got to just have a plethora. Mine is I don't have an opener, right? I just go into, hey, James, it's Tom. I just saw your post, or whatever that trigger is, whatever was the actual intent. So they know right out of the gate that I had purpose in calling, right? Hey, Lori, it's Tom. I was just giving you a call. I seen your post, or I saw you just checked out my email. Had a quick question for you. You got a second? Right? Sometimes I don't do the minute thing. Sorry, I said that. I think if they answer the phone, you already got permission. So you don't need to ask like, hey, do you have 30 seconds? Or, hey, do you mind if I tell you? I don't like it. They picked up the phone. Go into it. But I like how Nick does it. I get it. Him and Ronan kill it. And it's, again, their personalities. They can deliver that. But for me, I just straight up, I'm too direct, right? James, it's me. Yep. I saw your post that you were looking for some jobs. I wanted to reach out. Can you, out of curiosity, can you tell me how the search is going? And I pop into an open-ended question, because in that first 30 seconds, now I can pull up my file. I can get up to my notes, my 3x3, so I know exactly why I'm calling them. And then they're giving me that question back, right? And now I'm like right into my convo, and I can start messing with the middle a little bit, playing it out. But that's how I do it.
So my go-to opener is to downward tone, verify that it's the person that I'm looking to connect with. That question, hi, I'd like to speak with Tom, please. That downward tone can only be answered in one of three ways. It's me. No, I'm not interested. Who's this? Right? Like, that's the only way it can be answered, right? The go-to after that is, thanks for taking the call, Tom. Do you have a minute before your next meeting? This does a couple things. One, it verifies the fact that this is a cold call and I value their time. And two, I'm stealing his ability to say I'm in a meeting, which is the dumbest thing that our prospects say to us when we cold call them. If you can imagine yourself in a meeting with your leader and some cold caller is calling you and you stand up from that meeting, oh, hold on, boss. I got to take the call from the person. I don't know who it is. I assure you that's not going to go well, right? So
you don't have a job when you walk back in that room, that's for sure.
So then they answer, yes, I have a moment. No, I don't have a moment. If they don't have a moment, my answer, I'll call you tomorrow. No problem. And then I say, great. The reason for my call is. If they say I have a moment, the reason for my call is, and I fill that gap in. Yep. Because that's what they care about. Not, well, my name is and I'm with, and let me tell you about my company. No one gives a shit about that. Not yet. They will eventually, but not yet.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't.
I love the reason for the call. That's
we
my
still
favorite
have
one.
A few more things to talk about. We're going to talk CTAs. We're going to talk a few more things. Time is up. I through all of our LinkedIn profiles, connect with all of us. Stay for the next 5-10 minutes if you'd like to hang with us. If not, head on into the networking session. So next up, calls to actions. What are the next steps? How do we drive this on a call?
Give them the nugget, James. Kick us off. You got the nugget.
So I've got a few here. The first one is that I like to educate people on how I sell things after they tell me how they buy things, because that's going to dictate what my next call to action should be. It's usually the next step in how they buy things. That way I'm compliant with the way that they do it and all our expectations are made. And here's another little nugget. If you ever ask someone on a call, hey, can you tell me how you guys buy stuff? And they can't answer that question, that's probably not your decision maker. So you can reel it in right there, knowing that this person doesn't even know how that company buys your stuff. So that's a great way to test for power. And it's also a way to get the conversation started around how they actually move forward. If you can learn that and then tell them, great, this is how I sell things. The next part of the thing that comes out of your mouth next is typically what happens next is, and then you set the next step, the call to action. Instead of doing stupid things like, so what are my next steps? Because that person's immediate thought is, I don't know, you tell me. It's your show, man.
You called me. You interrupted my day.
You.
Like, you got to secure the next steps, and that's where people drop, right? And I like how you mentioned, right? Not every call has to end in booking a meeting, right?
That's
There's
right.
so many reasons to make a phone call. And again, leave it better than you found it, right? Again, you talk to a gatekeeper, find something, anything, ask a question, verify a cell number, do anything in that call that leaves that account better, because that compound interest will line up, right? And so when it comes to CTAs, it doesn't always have to be, if the meeting didn't get booked, then say, hey, I'm going to send you a follow-up email, right? I'd love to keep that open communication with you, anything. But it doesn't always have to be, hey, do you have 30 minutes? The next step doesn't have to be 30 minutes, right? If you see somebody biting and they're pretty good, but they're not all the way confident yet in making that call, send them something, right? Be like, hey, let's wrap up here. I want to shoot you something to let you digest over the next few days, and then I'm going to call you on Friday, right? I'll get that over to you, right? It doesn't have to land in the meeting if you know you can't get that. Now, obviously, my rule when I learned early in sales was always to ask 3 times, right, in your call. Once in the beginning, once in the middle, and once again at the end. I don't know if that rule still applies nowadays, James, but that's how
when you're cold calling, some people throw nets and some people throw spears. I'm a spear thrower.
I'm a spear, yeah. What are you, Nick? You throw the net out there and catch what you can, or are you spearing it? Popping the
Spearing
fish
it for sure. Yeah, spearing it.
I could see the 3 of us just like down in Tennessee, just bubbly, all wrapped up,
like attacking people with that.
So if you think about it, right? SDRs in the room that do most of the cold calling, AEs cold call occasionally, but a lot far less often than SDRs. SDRs in the room. If you're cold calling every day, tip of the spear. That's my book. Thank you, dude. Hey, mad love, Topher. So if you're an SDR and you're cold calling, right, then build lists that actually make sense.
Yep.
If you go and you build out your list of people that you sell into their vertical, you know their business, you're familiar with how your product impacts their business, you have customers that are like them, then you're throwing spears. But when you're building content, when you're creating a magnet to pull those ICPs and personas towards you, you're throwing a net. Do both. And you're going to find that there's always the next prospect lined up for you to dial their phone number with some level of random context that makes sense for them. And they're going to want to talk to you about it. They're going to want to, hey, this is interesting, but I don't have time right now. Can we put something on the schedule? One of the best questions I ask people early in my cold calling conversations is, do you have time right now, or do you want to put something on the calendar? Your calendar's probably right in front of you. So if you don't have time now, it's totally fine. Right? A lot of people will literally tell you, this is not for me right now, but let's do Thursday. Send me an invite. I look forward to it. And then they hang up. Another thing you can do is you can hang up. If somebody gives you the soft no problem, I'll call you tomorrow. Hang up before they do.
Yep.
When you call them tomorrow,
hang up before they do.
You.
Absolutely hang up before they do. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? Yep.
Back to how you all use
Nick, I'm sorry, buddy.
Oh, wait.
Hold on, I've got one for Nick. Back to how you all use your personality as a sell. Like, I like to call myself an awkward seller because I think it's really awkward
Awkward seller.
to call you.
Have you ever sat through a demo with Lori? Whew. No,
So awkward. So awkward. No.
awkward.
When cold calling, it's an awkward interaction where someone's like, they're really hesitant. You're trying to convince, like, there's not a convincing, but there's like an illusion of like, no, I'm not a spam caller. Like this, it's a very awkward situation. So I like to bring that personality. But we had a great question that, Nick, I want to throw your way. What if your company doesn't really let you shift away from that script already created when you're cold calling? How do you bring you as you are, whether you got that spear in your hand, whether you own the awkwardness or you grab the humor? How do you do that when the script is set and you are not allowed to change it?
I think even though you have a script, you can still put your own personality and kind of that tonality to it to kind of make it your own. Where you don't have to sound so robotic and so salesy. You can still kind of put your personality towards that, and hopefully prospects will appreciate that.
Okay.
Shweta had a good thing. She said, I feel uneasy through the call. Shweta, this is my advice. If anybody out there feels uneasy about the call, let us know in the chat. Look in the mirror. Say what you need to say. Rehearse it in the mirror.
Yeah.
Do you talk like that? Does it feel like you? If it doesn't, change it so that it does.
You got to be careful though. Like I had a girl who got a nice company, joined, broke in. One of the LinkedIn gurus was deployed to build scripting for the org, and it caused her a lot of struggle, dude. Like, and it wasn't able to customize like we talk about, right? We're all in environments where there should be some tweaking, but I'm going to be honest. I've talked to SDRs that are straight limited, and they're unable to even add in those little 10% tweaks. They're just going through it. And it tends to lead to poor success, right? Because at the end of the day, sales is about people buying from people they like. And the only way to be liked is to show up as yourself. So if you're not showing up as yourself, you could run that script 50 times a week every day, and you're not going to get anywhere because you're just being this robot, right? An order taker.
Authenticity saves the day 100%. I'll recommend a book, Selling from the Heart by Larry Levine.
Yes,
By Larry Levine.
Larry's got a great book. Yep.
We have 60 seconds, each of you round robin. What is one huge takeaway you hope people take from this today?
That was it? Oh, shit. Go ahead, James.
Your tone matters. Make sure that you're saying things the way that you say them. Don't try to say them like other people. It's one thing to have a script. It's a totally different thing to sound scripted.
Yes.
Great. Nick?
Nick?
I'd say just going back to the point, be yourself and show me you know me.
Sam McKenna, our queen.
Our queen. Show me you know me is key. And I would end on, the best thing you could do is start at the very front load of the call and get yourself that confidence. Do the 3 R's, do your research, know your ICP, do the foundational work so that all of these little things that you have questions about become easier because you know exactly who you're calling. You have the ammo you need, and it starts here and here, right? If you can buy into it and have the confidence, then all these little tactics, strategies, or objections kind of just brush off because you're prepared. So I would say make sure you're digging into your ICP and digging into your research and going out and making warm calls as best as possible versus just throwing out the net, right, James? It's throwing out the net and hoping for the best. Be more spearheaded.
Hope is not a strategy. That's Roderick Jefferson.
That's boom. There you go. Don't throw out the net. Grab the spear. We've all done it. It's possible, but it starts with that foundational work first.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thanks to all of our attendees. This was amazing. We hope your cold calls are a little less cold.